Alarms cut through the dark bridge. Before I even reached the door, red light pulsed across the walls. My boots slid on the metal floor as I ran in, breath tight in my chest, heart pounding faster than the siren itself. 3 ships had appeared on the edge of our scanner range. Fast, silent, not answering any signal we sent. My captain, a calm man named Owen Blake, stood at the center of the bridge with his hands gripping the rail, eyes locked on the main screen. "Report," he said, voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Unknown ships, sir," said Ivy Marsh, our sensor officer, her fingers flying across the console. "Heat signatures don't match anything in our records. They are closing fast. I should explain something before this gets stranger. My name is Daniel Cole. I am the youngest officer on this ship, the Horizon, and 3 weeks ago, I did something against every rule in the fleet handbook. I smuggled my cat on board. His name is Ginger, an orange tabby with a broad face and eyes that always look like he knows more than he is telling you. Back home, he survived 2 house fires and a flooded basement. When the recruiters said no pets allowed, I looked at his stubborn little face and could not leave him behind. I hid him in a supply case, padded with cloth, and told the scanner officer he was carrying biological samples, which, in a strange way, was not exactly a lie. For 3 weeks, Ginger had been living quietly in my quarters, sneaking out at night to explore vents and storage rooms. Nobody suspected a thing, until today. The moment the alarm went off, Ginger shot out from under my bunk, like he had been waiting for this exact second. He ran ahead of me through the corridor, faster than I could keep up, disappearing around the corner toward the bridge. By the time I arrived, he was already sitting in the center chair, Captain Blake's chair. Tail curled around his paws, ears sharp and forward, staring at the main screen like he understood every blinking dot on it. "Cole," Blake said without turning his head, "why is there a cat on my bridge?" "That's Ginger, sir. I can explain later. Right now we might have a bigger problem." Blake's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. Whatever calm judgment made him captain, told him that arguing about a cat while 3 unknown ships approached was not a smart use of time. Ivy's voice rose with tension. "Sir, they are changing formation, spreading out. This looks like they are trying to surround us." On the screen, 3 small triangles moved apart, curving slowly around our position, like fingers closing into a fist. My chest tightened. I had trained for emergencies, but training and living through one felt very different. Then Ginger did something strange. He stood up on the chair, arched his back, and stared hard at one specific spot on the screen. His tail flicked once, twice, then went completely still. His ears pointed forward like tiny antennas. "Sir," said Ivy slowly, "the cat has been looking at that same spot for almost 10 seconds. He has not blinked once." "He's a cat, Marsh. Cats stare at things," Blake muttered, though his eyes flicked toward the screen anyway. I watched Ginger closely. I had seen this look before, back home, right before he pounced on a bird outside our window or chased a moth across the room. His whole body was coiled, ready, focused entirely on something only he could sense. 4 seconds later, he jumped. He landed directly on the console, paw slapping down hard on the exact spot on the screen where one of the unknown ships was about to make a sudden move. "Hard turn now," Blake shouted, reacting on pure instinct before he could even think about why. Our pilot, a young woman named Grace Whitfield, yanked the controls without hesitation. The ship rolled sharply to the side. My stomach lifted as the entire bridge tilted for a second before stabilizing. Outside, on the main screen, the lead enemy ship shot forward exactly where we had been seconds earlier. Its wingmate, following too closely, swerved hard to avoid a crash and spun off course, drifting away from formation. Silence filled the bridge for one long breath. "They almost caught us in a pincer move," Ivy whispered, staring at the screen in disbelief. "If we had stayed on course another 5 seconds..." Nobody finished that sentence. Nobody needed to. Ginger, completely unbothered by the tension around him, sat back down on the console and began licking his paw, as if nothing important had just happened. Blake stared at him for a long moment, then turned to me. "Cole, explain now." "He's very perceptive, sir," I said quickly. "He notices patterns, movement, things people miss. He is a house cat. With excellent instincts, sir." Before Blake could respond, the ship shook again. A soft impact echoed through the hull, not an attack, but something scraping against our outer plating. Ivy's console beeped rapidly. "Something attached to the hull, sir, small, possibly a scanning device," she said. My blood ran cold. If the unknown ships were scanning us, they could be looking for weaknesses, or worse, trying to find a way inside. "Security teams to outer hull access points," Blake ordered. "Marsh, can you jam their scanner?" "Trying, sir, but their frequency keeps shifting. I can't lock onto it." Ginger's ears twitched. He turned his head sharply toward the far side of the console, the side connected to the outer hull sensors. He pawed at a specific button, one I recognized as an old diagnostic switch rarely used anymore. "Don't touch that. He'll break something," Blake said, reaching to move him aside. "Wait," Ivy said suddenly. "That switch controls the auxiliary frequency scanner, the one we stopped using because it was considered outdated." She hesitated only a second before typing quickly, activating the old system alongside the modern one. The screen flickered, then steadied, showing a new pattern of frequencies moving in a slow, repeating wave. "Got it," she said, amazed. "Their scanner uses an old frequency pattern, one our newer systems were not built to detect. I can jam it now." Within seconds, the beeping stopped. The scraping sound on the hull faded, then disappeared entirely as the device apparently lost its connection and detached. Blake exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. He looked at Ginger, who had already lost interest, and curled up in the warm spot near the console's power line, purring softly. "That's twice," Blake said quietly. "Sir? That's twice your cat has done something that saved this ship, and I still don't understand how." I didn't fully understand it either. Maybe it was instinct sharpened by years of survival. Maybe cats simply notice things humans overlook, small shifts in motion, sound, warmth, patterns too subtle for our senses. Whatever it was, Ginger had just helped us avoid 2 disasters in the span of a few minutes. The 3 unknown ships, confused by our sudden turn and the loss of their scanning device, began to pull back. Slowly, cautiously, they retreated toward the edge of our sensor range and disappeared into the dark. The bridge stayed quiet for a long moment before people began to breathe normally again. Grace laughed nervously, shaking her head. Ivy leaned back in her chair, wiping sweat from her forehead. Even Blake allowed himself a small, tired smile. "Somebody explained to me how a cat outperformed our entire sensor array," he said, though there was no anger left in his voice, only disbelief. "He notices things we miss, sir," I said again, this time with more confidence. Blake looked down at Ginger, who blinked slowly up at him, the same lazy blink he gave me every morning before demanding food. "Fine," Blake said finally. "He stays, but someone needs to build him a proper spot on this bridge. I am not having my captain's chair smell like cat fur for the rest of this mission." Relief spread through me, warm and sudden. I picked Ginger up carefully, and he complained the way he always does, a low sound of protest, annoyed at being interrupted from his rest. I held him anyway, feeling his heartbeat steady against my hands. Later that night, after the excitement had settled and the ship returned to its quiet hum, I sat in my quarters with Ginger curled up beside me. The corridor outside was calm again, lights dimmed for the night cycle. I thought about how strange it was that the smallest, most unexpected things could make the biggest difference. A cat, hidden in a supply case, breaking every rule in the handbook, had somehow become the reason our entire crew was still safe. The next morning, I found a small cushion placed neatly on the arm of the captain's chair. Nobody admitted to putting it there, but everyone seemed to know exactly why it existed. Ginger walked onto the bridge like he owned it, jumped onto the cushion, and settled down with his tail wrapped around his paws, eyes half closed but still watching the screen. Nobody said anything about regulations that day. Nobody needed to. Because somewhere between danger and safety, between rules and instinct, my cat had found his place among the stars, and no rule book was ever going to change that now.